Welcome. Good afternoon. Welcome to this second part two of yours truly, Coffee with Dragon D, presenting from the lair of the dragon, independent philosopher, independent artist, independent activist. Part two of the ongoing philosophical, artistic, athletic, of course, meditative theory, my thesis. I present my thesis called The Privilege of Civilization. I'm going to put this back on the Peter and will proceed. Welcome to the Dragon's Nest. First and foremost, want to say my gratitude. I am grateful, thankful that my electricity bill is paid, that my rent is paid, fully paid my rent for the month of January. It is the first, and of course, first week of January. It is Wednesday, January 4th. Have, of course, paid my rent in full, fully paid my rent, fully paid my electricity bill. And yours truly rock and rolling on this special philosophic, artistic, meditating event this through 16 p.m. Thankful, grateful that my rent and electricity bill are paid and I have this cup of coffee and this for lunch afterwards. Thank you to my anonymous sister who provided this special papaya for me to eat after this coffee with yours truly, Dragon. Welcome to this special artistic philosophical event. We're gonna rock and roll. This is part two of the ongoing thesis which I present to thee live, which I've written over the past years, 7, 8, 9, 10 or so years, which have been somewhere on USB keys by hand, and which I now present in direct via Facebook live streaming, in direct communication, oral communication, and lecturing on this live stream, and it's gonna be on YouTube later on. The Privileges of Civilization is the title, and of course the subtitle is, of course, the privileges, interconnected privileges of civilization, which we all share different levels, interconnected and integrated privileges of civilization as part of the privilege of civilization. And of course, part one, we discussed rock and roll a little bit. I'm just gonna put a little bit of honey. I'm gonna say grateful, thankful that I got this honey. Thank you to the government of Quebec who made, of course, the gesture or financial gesture to address the growing inflation crisis which have been ongoing, of course, in the past days, weeks, and months. The inflation, and I'm living in a financial crisis worst of my life, but I'm open for business as an independent athlete, the people's athlete who created the world's greatest, of course, system, program, workout training system that I've created, which requires no equipment whatsoever, which is officially titled the General War Integrated Total Body Training System, which you can scroll down on Facebook and on YouTube, and you can see hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of yours really working out, training, exercising in this underground Dragon's Lair, literally underground Dragon's Lair, which has served as my gymnasium, as being, of course, also my office, my room, and my temple. Four in one small space. It is basically four in one, a room, an office, and a temple, and a fourth dimension to that trinity of office, room, and temple. It has served as a gymnasium where I've created the workout training program system, which requires no equipment and which is efficient, effective, and simple. And I'm advocating for the mass financing of citizens across the collective North American civilization via a public-private partnership. And I'm advocating for its implementation in schools, universities, and of course in public security forces, and of course public security forces such as, of course, the SPVM here in Montreal, and of course coast to coast, the RCMP and thesis and FBI and CIA across the North American and Canadian Armed Forces and the United States Armed Forces, of which yours truly was born twice in past lives in the USA 156 years ago, 718 miles south of Hawk Island. This Hawk Island, HAWK, Montreal. Yours truly served in a past life in the U.S. Army 156 years ago, 718 miles south of Hawk Island. So yours truly speaking as a North American Quebecer right from La Belle Province. I am grateful, thankful that my electricity bill is paid, that my rent is paid, and I have this honey thanks to the government of Quebec who made an effort to give citizens such as myself who are financially struggling but who are richest in kisses, got 718 trillions of kisses, by which I am founding the dancing goddess in the dragon kingdom first and foremost. So all who want kisses by the millions, because I've got trillions. 1 trillion is 1,000 billion. 1 billion is 1,000 million. So it's 718-418-156-093-093. So I got a lot of kisses, credited with one condition: to distribute freely to all my willingly loving allies and armies. And I'm founding right here in Hawk Island, Montreal, La Belle Province, Quebec, as a Quebecer, Canadian, North American who has a universal heart for world peace. But I am a philosopher of North America, and my policies are, of course, first and foremost for North America, part of NORAD, to create, of course, what I call the UE, the Universal Exchange Unit. That's why I'm calling all willingly loving to support the implementation of my Trinity of theories, which I do believe and the implementation and the creation of subsequent of the two complementary covenant and cooperative institutions of the International Citizen Integrated Social Security and Service Force, aka the Dragon Army, a public-private partnership. Everything that I'm calling on public have been for the past days, weeks, and months, of course, is a public and a private partnership, part of the ongoing world peace, support the world peace dream, which manifests as the dancing goddess in the Dragon Kingdom, which yours truly, the founder thereof, is a public-private partnership calling all willing and loving to support, that I'm founding first and foremost with all those trillions of kisses, because kisses got money don't and broke, but my art is golden. Challenging, of course, Tyson Fury to a boxing match March 20th. Support that ongoing campaign March 20th. Dragon versus Tyson Fury, my one and only boxing official boxing match in March. And enter the ring once and only, see if I fight who's undefeated Tyson Fury. I love boxing, I love football, I love of course sports. I encourage people to sports, to physical activity. It is my medicine and therapy of choice. I encourage people public hygiene, please increase in public hygiene. And all my rent's paid. I'm grateful, thankful that my rent is paid, my electricity bill is paid, and that I have this honey. Thank you to farmers from Wotton here, Quebec, Wotton, Wotton, Quebec, who farm this with the bees in cooperation with nature and Mother Nature and civilization, which of course my dream is for the harmony, equilibrium thereof via the creation of the DGA, the Dancing Goddess Army, as an artist, athlete with ideas and theories, and of course to work together with all existing institutions and organizations on the environment as a pro-labor universal revolutionary centrist, a pro-labor universal revolutionary centrist, who now you're going to see your studio in my underground room, office, and temple. I'm sharing with the public since I don't want to waste. There's a little bit of honey, so I don't want to waste it. So you're going to see yours truly, philosopher, artist, geopolitical analyst and theorist, and of course independent psychological analyst and theorist whose medicine is working out, training, and exercising. Lick a jar of honey. Yeah, and get dirty sometimes, but get back clean. I do not want to waste anything, so no matter for world peace, I'm willing to lick a lot of things. For world peace, I'm willing to lick a lot of things, For world peace, I'm willing to lick a lot of things. What are you willing to do for world peace? And if you're an ally army of the Dancing Goddess and the Dragon Kingdom to get those kisses credited by the millions, because I've got trillions of kisses. Although living in a financial crisis, I'm grateful for today. Carpe diem. I'm open for business. Gonna continue later on sending. I missed the deadline last Friday. I'm sending invitations on part of my philosophical, artistic, comedic, ongoing French Canadian, since I love French and I speak French and I write poetry and I write songs in French. I'm sending them to 300 and I'm past 200. I'm past 200, so I'm done more than 2/3 of sending him emails and invitations and partnerships and looking for collaborations and partnership and commission and working together on my comedy, art and humor, and of course philosophy and poetry, part of my Adrien Québécois, Le Dragon Arc-en-Ciel from the Belle Province, which is an ongoing project in parallel to the projects that I'm working on now. So the privilege of civilization is my thesis, the privilege of civilization. The privilege of civilization. I've introduced it, of course, yesterday by saying, of course, we got to define civilization, and civilization can be defined by having common denominators based on a structure, whether, of course, of a governmental structure, of a structure that supports an existing complement of civilization, of a group of unity of peoples or different peoples coming together with set of rules and regulations and bound by certain rules, regulations, or laws, such as, of course, for example, the laws of commerce, laws of business, laws of conduct, laws of agriculture, and so on and so forth. And said that as an independent student scholar of history, it is don't like to say that a civilization necessarily started in ancient Egypt, although it was there in many past lives, many incarnations. Even under past life, I was born right here on the island, Hawk Island of Montreal, as a Quebecer, where I helped Louis Cyr push the strongman Louis Cyr, helped Louis Cyr push some horses on a calèche, on a horse cart in a past life. So we are truly, as a universal spiritual teaching student, with questions. I do not know at all. So many things I don't know. I'm not perfect, far from it. Do not play it self-righteous. I got some issues, got some vices, and playing the self-righteous card is not me. I get dirty, but I get back clean. I like my BDSM switch sometimes. So it's rock and roll. Freedom is a double-edged sword, and I do believe firmly and foremost in the implementation of my trinity of theories: the CIT Citizen Integration Theory, the DRT Debt Refusion Theory, and the Democratic Fusion Theory, with the Debt fusion to in the CIT, the Trinity of theories to be implemented via the fourth dimension, and that fourth dimension is love, and love is also action, not just blah blah. So the privilege of civilization. So civilization can be defined by several factors, of course, and it is mostly pinpointed by historians as, of course, originating with the nation states or the city states, right? The city states, city state kingdoms, city state empires, city states of the ancient Egypt, of ancient Sumeria, which became Babylon afterwards, of ancient India, ancient China. Now, I of course do like to say as an independent historian that of course civilization kind of arose about, let's say, 5,000 years ago, or more same time, around the same time, when this most historians agree that it seems that civilization, city states and city neighborhoods with laws and regulations, and of course a leader, a chief, a king, or a queen, or a king and a queen, or a priest king, or whatever the case was, a chieftain, a warlord, or whatever the case was, in different sets and in different ways in across the world at around the same time, right? From what we know historically, because there's many things that we don't know, such as how the pyramids were built. Of course, I was there in a past life, as it says, of course, in Genesis, and to read Genesis, and I got more questions than answers, right? Like the paradox or the mystic paradox of course, Genesis chapter 50. If you read Genesis chapter 50, at least to me, read it at least 3 times, you're going to say, hey, how come this is so? It's quite a mystery there that we have in this Bible. So many mysteries about, of course, ancient Egypt, which is part of the Bible, of course, part of the Bible and part of Western civilization. And of course, most history books put Sumeria with present-day Iraq, or was Babylon and ancient Egypt, as the origins of Western civilization. So, to the world peace, and to the privilege of civilization, which is my thesis, ongoing thesis. So we discussed first introduction yesterday. The privilege of civilization as a all-encompassing. So everybody who lives in the nation states, or myself here as a Quebecer in La Belle Province, Quebec, Canada, in USA, or what I call the complex of North American civilization, or the collective North American civilization, which of course is part of Quebec, La Belle Province, and of course coast to coast Canada, and of course the United States of America. We form a complex North American civilization, or the complex of North American civilization, right here from Quebec, Montreal, a metropolis city, who Montreal and Hawk Island, HAWK, Montreal, Hawk Island, reached 1 million people in 1930. In 1930, 1931, like that, reached Montreal had 1 million people population. So it's one of the biggest, most populated cities in the 1930s was Montreal in Canada, Quebec, in North America. Even now today is the second most populated city in Canada, right after Toronto, and of course one of the top 10, I believe, in North America. In Canada, US, I believe Mexico City is first, but of course is in the top 10 or top 20. Maybe now is not top 10 anymore, but it's probably 9th or 10th, or even perhaps 11th or 12th or 13th. In the top 20 for sure. Cities most populated in North America, but I'm not sure. See, I gotta double check if it's still Montreal is still in the top 10 of North America, because Mexico City is a big city, and of course we have New York, and we have of course in the United States to be the bigger city, and of course in Los Angeles and San Francisco and Seattle, and of course Dallas, another big conglomeration in the complex of North American civilization, or what I call the collective North American civilization, which I've lectured in the past and will continue to lecture and give the discourses in the coming days, weeks, or months ahead, as yours truly, the people's athlete, the people's philosopher, and yours truly presenting my thesis, which is called the privilege of civilization. So the privilege of civilization is that we have a concordium, confluence of privileges under the privilege of civilization, which is privilege of civilization, that we have a privilege to live in a civilization, whether of course Western civilization, Indian civilization, Sino civilization, and whatever the case may be. Some say of course there's of course other civilization, African civilization, and of course other civilization, Latin American civilization. But I of course put Canada, Quebec, Canada, US, and Mexico together as part of the emerging complex. Not a complex as in psychology, a complex where you have some issues, which I do have by the plenty. I'm my own independent psychological analyst and theorist, and working out, training and exercising and push-ups and squats and sweating is my medicine and therapy of choice. While I do enjoy a little bit of good bacon, speaking of bacon, I forgot to take it out the bacon to cook it, so it's gonna be bacon for tomorrow. Then if I don't cook it later for tonight, or maybe should take it out, cook it for dinner, that is gonna be tomorrow, I guess, because I was able to afford bacon on special. It was reduced by $1.56, so about a quarter, 25-30% off or so. I paid $3.44 for 375 grams, but I was busy earlier this morning, so I forgot to take it out. I was gonna cook lunch for me and my sister. So that is a privilege. That bacon is a privilege of civilization, and it's part of the subgroup or the different privileges, plural, multiple privileges, which we have as citizens. In whatever fellow citizens you are, whether you're a multi-millionaire CEO, of which my brother's CEOs, I heard that news, it was on the radio and I read last night, my brothers across Canada and of course across the collective North American civilization, CEOs, please, 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 you got 7 houses, 7 cars this month of January, February, March. Please finance food security. Please finance food security. Please finance food security. So no way that would be that selfish. I'm not totally selfless, I admit. Playing that I'm totally selfless, floating on clouds, is just, it would be this would be not truthful. But because I do have lusts, I do have issues, I do want to be, for both, as a philosopher, for both pleasure and purpose, for purpose to maintain and upgrade civilization via the implementation of my theories, of which I do firmly believe that at this point in time where we are, and manifesting of course the realities of my geopolitical analysis, of which back in 2019 had concorded it, had created a geopolitical analysis and had came to the conclusion that we are humanity again on a path towards an international conflagration. Quickly, what I'm referring to is that back in 2019, in October 2019, I've said humanity, I've sounded the alarm, mankind, humanity, said we are again on a path towards an international conflagration. And so made and created and designed and produced the General War Integrated Total Body Training System, aka the Dragon Army workout, aka the 300 workout, designed, created, and made to go hand in hand with a World War III scenario, which in a paradoxical manner or fashion resembles the current COVID-19 health and financial crisis and the current Russia-Ukraine crisis. Back in October 2019, taking into consideration geopolitical events which had transpired, major geopolitical events such as the US-China trade war, which began in 2018 with the Trump administration beginning the impositions of tariffs on China, which, if you want a deep analysis from a centrist, nuanced perspective, you can feel free to finance, commission, DM, and sponsor such a dialogue, such a 1 hour, perhaps more than, it will require more than an hour. We can go 3 hours, a whole lecture, and exploring it from a dynamic perspective of analyzing that geopolitical event and understanding, of course, Sino civilization, and understanding our North American collective civilization, which has emerged and is emerging, is forming as I'm speaking. Of course, but its beginning is around the beginning of the Second World War, and afterwards with the treaties such as NORAD, which we have here in North America, Canada, joint US. So back in 2019, taking all those geopolitical events into consideration, the US-China trade war and the other events such as the ongoing terrorism by the Islamic State, such as the ongoing geopolitical turmoil, historical events such as Pearl Harbor, and other events which had transpired. And so back then, I've said, paradoxically, as a world peace advocate, which still am, still hoping for peace, hopefully by the implementation of my trinity of theories, and of course as an analyst of geopolitics, and of course paradoxically a world peace advocate, but also being a geopolitical analyst and theorist. And so back then in 2019, in October, I had concluded, sounded the alarm, I've said, humanity, we are again on a path towards an international conflagration. And so created, made, and designed my workout training program, which requires absolutely no equipment, and which I'm proud to have created. I'm proud to have, of course, done my 300 session from October 17 was the first session to September 29th of this year, or last year, because we began in the year 2023 now, the 4th day, January 4th today. So in September 29, 2022, of course, have completed the 300th session, and that's when I officially turned the A of my surname. Dragon became Dragon. I said I'm going to merit and earn by by sweat and blood and tears to turn that A into an O, basically turn the A of my surname, Dragon, became Dragon, so Dragan became Dragon, and by merit, talent, and by doing that work and completing 300 sessions, because that's what I said at the beginning, and even now I've been doing more. I've done more than 333 sessions, and will continue to do them in the coming days, weeks, and months ahead. So we got privileges of civilization, we got farming, like I've discussed in the first lecture. For example, in farming, I did some urban farming in the past 7 years, so have some experience plotting the land, putting the land, and of course doing everything that's involved in the agricultural sector, in the work of farming, but at a micro level. So the tomatoes, the lettuce, and whatever the beans and the things that I harvested by my work, which were edible, and I ate them. So, but it was at the micro level. But we have this privilege of food security, and that's the top. And the hierarchy, it's food, and of course the increasing food production and food distribution is in many ways, for many of us, the vast majority of us, it's a privilege of civilization, part of an integrated subgroups, multiple, many, several privileges that we share at different levels in common. XYZ. So there's the CEOs, which I've heard today at the radio, and yesterday I've read that their salaries have increased exponentially and not keeping in par with the rest of the workers, the more than 90% of the workers, the CEOs from 2019 till 20 this year. The report came out about 2 or 3 days ago that the salaries have increased by a big proportion, and of course are now averaging the top 100 CEOs, from my understanding, now average more than 14.3 million annual salary for, so 14.3 compared to in 2019 it was about 11, so it has increased by about almost like a quarter, while the salaries of the workers, it's only about 2 to 3%. So there's a big disproportion, a big growing economic, financial, commercial inequality, which we have living, we have to address, we have to address, my brothers and sisters. And that is economic, financial, commercial privilege that these CEOs have from our civilization, which has emerged, North American collective civilization, over the past decades, right? Mostly since the Second World War, and this privilege of civilization, such as but the first privilege is the food, the eating, because even the CEOs, you make 14, you got 7 houses, 7 cars, my brother CEO, they also got to eat, right? Tonight, the CEO, whether of the XYZ corporations, the top 100 corporations of Canada, the top 100 corporations of the United States, the top 100 corporations of Mexico, BlackRock, Mr. Fing. I'm saying BlackRock of Mr. Fing, who is, of course, the assets under management, the AUMs, what's called the AUMs, it is supposedly the biggest. It's not that well known, but if you know a little bit about finance, and I don't know much, I know a little bit about nothing. So many things I don't know in this world, and I a constant learner and constant learning every day, and I'm not perfect, far from it. But from, of course, the finance world of finance, of North American, global, international finance, of course, BlackRock is the biggest in terms of assets under management, with trillions of dollars. But I've got more kisses. Supposedly, BlackRock is now at 7 trillion assets in United States dollar, what's called in finance AUMs, assets under management. But I've got my 111 times that amount of kisses from the goddess credited to give to all my women. So although I'm in debt, $10,000, I'm broke, but I'm rich in kisses with some brain and some muscle. But nonetheless, of course, Mr. Fink also has this greater economic, financial, commercial privilege, right? How they go with responsibilities and obligations and duties is a constant dialogue in the public and the private sphere, and the public and the private sphere, and the public and the private sphere always a dialogue and an ongoing breaking of impasses which we're facing, which myself, I've been broken. My personal impasse was depressed and suicidal, and I've conquered depression. I have conquered depression via working out, training, and exercising, and admitting I've been in the open LGBTQ, right, for many years. I'm androgynous, pansexual, and no need to spy on me. Stasi are gone after 1989 with RCMP, CSIS, and FBI, CIA, or whatever other spy, Pegasus, because we got tiny hands, tiny feet, and a little tiny androgynous clit dick. We got that out of the way. maybe the spires got even smaller than myself, but that's another story. Now that we got out of the way again for the 77th time, we can proceed to perhaps breaking impasses and thinking about solutions for our individual and collective problems. Myself now, I'm a bit sore. I could use to afford a massage therapy session. I cannot afford it at this time, but I'm open for friends with benefits for the 21st century, and I'm calling for the Dragon Army to be the public-private partnership for service and security, for service and with consent, hygiene, mutual understanding, and love. All services to be offered with consent, hygiene, mutual understanding, and love. All services to be offered to its fellow citizens and XYZ on the table. And what can I bring to somebody's table? Well, I'm not always joyous or moody or excelling XYZ. I can do this, I can do that, and everybody can bring something. I'm sure that most people of us can bring something, and we all deserve second, third, and even more chances depending on XYZ levels. I'm not perfect, but I do believe that my theories, the CIT Citizen Integration Theory, Debt Fusion Theory, DRT, and Democratic Fusion Theory, I do firmly believe that its implementation via the fourth dimension love, and love is action, not just blah blah. I love and creating the two complementary covenant and cooperative institutions, the private and the public partnership. But everything that I do is a call to the corporations and to the citizens, to the public and the private, to of course break the impasses and of course make the collective North American civilization, aka the complex of North American civilization, an ethical, moral, and just superpower for the 21st century, and secure everything coast to coast. And that way, east is the Atlantic, sending love to my maritime brothers and sisters in Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, and of course Prince Edward Island and Labrador, and of course to down south in New York, Vermont, New Hampshire state, of course all the states. And that way is west. That's the west coast. That is the Pacific. So the realities of North America is that we have this geographical uniqueness, that we have two oceans. To the east is the Atlantic, to the west is the Pacific. And we're surrounded by a big river here in this metropolis city of Hawk Island, Montreal, which has been my home for many, many, many years as independent philosopher, artist, and the people's athlete and the people's doctor, who I said that I've died during COVID. I was very sick of COVID. We have another variant, so please increase in hygiene in public. Wash your hands with soap and water, hand sanitizer, disinfect. Wash your hands with hand sanitizer, disinfect. Wash your hands with hand sanitizer, disinfect your hands. Thank you, my anonymous sister, whom if I make a me, I'm gonna give her half. Or make a B, I'm gonna give her half. A tree, I'm gonna give her half. It's anonymous sister gave me a gift, a great gift for the New Year's, to start off the New Year's with a good. This one got 3 more uses, but I got a brand new one waiting for me to open it after this one is done, baby. And I go in the public, because once we step in the public, like right now I'm in my underground room, office, and temple, right? Room, I can turn everything off. I can get naked and put Madonna music, Celine Dion music, or Tekashi 6ix9ine music, or techno music, and dance naked. My price for naked dance, I don't have a OnlyFans, but it will be $1,000,000 for world peace. Give half of that million to my anonymous sister, but that is my price for 1 hour naked dance is $1,000,000, not one penny less Canadian dollars, and XYZ to finance. Give half to my sister, pay all my debt, and continue to give half of my half a million to food security, and the rest to of course do the continue the my dream, which manifests my world peace dream, manifesting as the dancing goddess and the dragon kingdom. So for I've got hand sanitizer, and please, now we have with the very added responsibility, added duty, and added obligation in the public. Because once I stay here, I share with the public in this public sphere. My poetry, my philosophies, my workouts have been open source for many, many years. Open source working out training, my system has been put open source, my philosophies have been put open source in the public, my some of intellectual creations, and of course poetry, or even as a hobby rapper, rock and roll, and all the artists and independent artist, independent athlete, independent activist, AAA, have been put in the public sphere, which is the internet. A combination of a public-private partnership. The internet, what is the internet, is an ongoing question, and XYZ, such as is what is Mother Nature, or what is other things of our realities here on Earth, on planet Earth. So once I step outside, I'm no longer just private citizen dragon. In my underground room, office, and temple, I'm private citizen dragon. My rent is paid for this small room, office, and temple, which I appreciate, and have written many philosophies, many theories. I've done a lot of workout training program exercise here, but I do admit that to have an open doors Monday to Friday for my allies and armies to work out, train, exercise, and rock and roll, I would have to have something bigger than this, which I do want to have something bigger than this a bit to do more workouts and better dancing, which is my favorite sport, blah, 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 blah. So when I step outside, I'm no longer just private citizen dragon. I'm also a public citizen dragon. So an added dimension, public dimension is added with added responsibilities, duties, and obligation, whether to stay 2 meters away from fellow citizens, whether is of course hygiene in public, please increase in hygiene in public, please increase in hygiene in public. Wash your hands with soap and water when you go in a public domain, which is not your private home, private domain, such as a bank, a school, and of course a factory, a shop, whatever it is, a grocery store, and whatever the case may be. As it's 2:45 here p.m. in the EST, I'm going to drink a little bit of coffee and we'll continue with the privileges of civilization. The privilege of civilization has privileges, which, for example, the CEOs have a bigger financial, economic, social privilege, right? But we all have one privilege, most of us, because if you're a farmer, thank you, love you, kiss you, farmers, it does not apply to them, right? The privilege of food security, because they grow it, they work it, they have the farm, they have the land. I was just meditating the other day of a farm here, 44 kilometers from Hakale, Montreal. I sent them a little email, thank you, for the potatoes, which I still have half of the bag, so I'm gonna be cooking some slow cooking for the weekend, some good potato slow cooking that I love to cook. How their farm was established in 1948 and they expanded and they grew, but imagine, and it's passed on generation to generation from their grandparents to grandparents to mother and father, fathers and mothers, and now to that since 1948. So more than 70 years, 74 years, 77 years about, right? 77, 20, 75 years about, right? That the farm was established. If it's 1948, we're 2020, depending on the month, it could be 74 or 75 if we do the calculation by the math. More than 70 years. So more than 3 generations, right? I worked on the farm of potatoes and I got it to the table. I, of course, got it by food security, so I'm grateful for it. So I said, they don't have farm privileges. We have farm privilege. We have the food privilege because they support us, the rest of the millions of us, to eat, to do whatever it is that we do. Just a cup of coffee, the honey, right, and the bread. This bread that I'm gonna eat afterwards is gonna be a light meal for this bread. 2 slices of bread with late lunch with peanut butter made, right? It says made in Canada, but the peanuts, of course, who knows where they were grown. They could be grown in Florida, could be grown in Latin America, somewhere in the world. But I got these 2 slices of bread from the wheat, right? And the bakers and the butchers and the bakers who bake the bread. So the bakers had the wheat for the farming, the wheat probably in the prairies. Let's go send a little love to my fellow down coast, down the west. As we go off to Quebec, we got Ontario, my Ontario brothers and sisters. Thank you, love you, kiss you, farmers, butchers, bakers across Canada, coast to coast. We got Ontario, then we got Manitoba, then we got Saskatchewan, then we got Alberta, and we got British Columbia, and we go north, we got Yukon, Northwest Territories, right? And we got Nunavut, and then we go around about Canada, and we go around about North America. We got plenty of states from Wyoming, Arkansas, Florida, California, of course, Washington State. We got Louisiana, we got Massachusetts, we got the states, Wyoming, we got, of course, so many states, Texas, we got Louisiana, we got, of course, 50 states. I'm gonna say I'm gonna go to Alaska. I'm gonna go to all the 50 states. New York State. We got New Jersey. We got Georgia. We got Alabama. We got Tennessee. Carolina. We got North Carolina. We got South Carolina. We got Ohio. I'm gonna say all the 50 states in North America. So many of us, the majority of us, more than 90%, maybe more than 93%, we got this farm privilege. And we got the privilege, of course, of farming. And here we got another privilege. We got the housing, we have the housing, right? Which, of course, the housing, those 2 building constructions, they don't necessarily have this privilege because they built it, right? Whether the architects at some level, the architects and the workers and the construction. But another privilege, which I've discussed last one, is the part of the privileges of civilization, because the privilege of civilization is one privilege that we all share in common in interconnected, integrated ways, the privilege of civilization. And we got privileges is plural, multiple, several. such as the electricity above my head that I'm now heating my cup of coffee with this morning, and this electricity with light so I can speak better or have a better view of the red dragon in the back, which lights above my head. And of course, the cell phone, the smartphone, was of course plugged in earlier this morning, and the energy which powers it is clean, zero pollution energy. And the laptop which I'm using to record it to make my YouTube video, it's not that best quality, but it's most about the philosophy, my dictations and my communications, or my call to all, which is more important than the quality of the video, aside from other superficial matters, which of course I'm not totally devoid of being sometimes superficial. I do sometimes like a little big booty myself, because I do have a worked with the squats. I have a big dragon rainbow booty myself, so that we got that out of the way. No need to spy me. I'm pretty much an open book. I don't remember much about childhood, adolescence, early adulthood. I remember paradoxically my past 7, 8, 9, 10 or so years, and of course what I've written in journals, what I've written in history journals on USB keys about past lives, and about being about my spiritual path, and about being a universal spiritual teaching student who says the word goddess, Goddess, and a goddess of civilization sometimes in past culture, being an independent historian. Of course, the goddess has given laws, or self-defender of laws, such as make me think of course, one famous one as one of my past lives incarnations was in ancient Egypt, and we had the 42 laws of math, which was a goddess, and you had to keep the 42 laws. And of course, mystically, they to meditate on some spirituality. It's of course also in the Bible, right? The mysterious children of Israel. Keep in mind that about the story of the children of Israel and Moses, it's a story which is supposed to be about more than 3,580 years ago, right? Story of Moses and the children of Israel is supposed to be more than 3,580 years ago, right? The Torah is supposed to be more than 3,580 years ago. Right? So all our ancestors back in those days was Moses in ancient Egypt and the spreading thereof throughout the world, or what have you. But nonetheless, there's a mention of 42 journeys, right, of the ancient Israelites, the mysterious stories, which it's not definitely literal, and there's more spirituality. But in my spirituality, of course, I apply non-dogmatic. I'm non-dogmatic, try to be non-dogmatic, non-sectarian, but I do say the holy, sacred, and divine word in my spirituality, goddess, Goddess, right? Goddess, right? Goddess. By many names, whatever name, and of course referring Mother Nature is divine, holy, sacred, and divine for me. Sometimes you just gotta look at the blue sky. Now there's a bit of gray, dark clouds, but of course somewhere the sun is rising, and the sun is shining somewhere now in the world, setting so much light and life and heat around the whole nations and states now at this moment in time. Somewhere coast to coast to North America, or the collective North American civilization, the sun is shining now, right? So another privilege of civilization, part of the privileges which we have at different levels, because some of us have more of that privilege, some have more of the other. Some of it are like the farmers, they provide us food security, so they really don't have that. They're the one that provide that privilege. So we have this privilege, electricity, right across this label province of Quebec. 63 dams were built with brains and muscle, right? Imagine, since 1944, 63 dams were built across this La Belle Province. 63 dams across La Belle Province were built with brains and muscle. Right? Tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of people worked in different levels, capacity since 1944 to build, and we're about to open the 64th dam. I bless Hydro-Quebec so that in the next 7 years, cette prochaines années, qui en 3 set out to build 7 others. I send them kisses and hugs by the millions, right, to build 7 others in the next 7 years. It's clean, zero pollution, zero energy, which emits, and I have this privilege. It's a privilege of civilization, right? If you haven't built a dam, right? Those who build the dams, well, they provide it for us. This privilege which we have, clean, zero pollution, zero emission energy for me to do whatever, to do a twerk video, or to do a chant video, to do a food video, cooking video, to heat my electricity, to do the cooking, to do everything that we do across all the Belle Province, Quebec, and even six or five states in the U.S. and even furthermore in the coming days, weeks, and months and is ahead is going to be, I think, about close to a third of electricity from of Manhattan in New York, which is a few million people live in Manhattan, right? The function is going to be energy from right here from Quebec. So all those hundreds of miles it goes is going to go from Hydro-Quebec, clean, zero pollution, zero emission energy. So this is another privilege, right? Another privilege would be the transportation, the highways, all the highways of North America, right? So we have the cars, the truckers, the transportation, the food. This honey comes from Watan. Watan is a few hours drive away. It was trucker, thank you trucker, who drove it to your story so that your story can enjoy it and have it. Have this honey so that I could eat it. And the government who made the incentive right to get it. This honey, the producer. So I got the coffee privilege, the farm privilege, the honey privilege, the electricity privilege. I myself, as a citizen, philosopher, independent philosopher, artist, activist, have this privileges, have multiple privileges myself of under the privilege, the general privilege of civilization, which we all have. Citizens of Canada, all of citizens of Canada, all of citizens of US, we all have. Whether you're LGBTQ, rainbow dragon citizen, whether you're a citizen who's part like me of a minority of whatever 3%, whatever 5%, which are in the open, is more than that in actuality. Is more LGBTQ like myself, but they're not in the open, right? Some of them are hidden. There's even a few hockey players, which I love hockey. Dancing is my favorite sport. I'm sure in Canadian, maybe by tonight or by the next game tomorrow, hopefully we'll win 7-3 or win 4-3, or we'll have a good win tomorrow. Go Habs, go! But I'm sure there's 2 or 3 on the Habs team that are LGBTQ, whether gay or bisexual, whatever. Well, I'm not gonna go and that's not a discussion, but I'm sure, I'm pretty sure. Is this statistically is supposed to be at least 1 or 2 out of 2 out of 10, even more. Right? But that's another matter which I've discussed and will discuss in the coming days, weeks, and months ahead. So this is another privilege which we have, right? All these privileges, part that all of us, multi-millionaire athletes, citizens, farmers, those on social assistance who have received difficulty in financial difficulty, a social assistance check like myself this January. Social assistance check was open for business nonetheless. Has to pay a little back to the government. Has some debt, paying the most interest on the debt servicing due to the 7 unprecedented hikes of the Bank of Canada. I believe my theory, the debt refusion theory, taking all private and public debt and refusing it, might debt and create what I call across North America the UE, the Universal Exchange Unit by public-private partnership. That's why I'm calling on my astrological brother Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, Elon Musk, and all willing living to support this, whether on the right, on the left, or on the pro-labor universal revolutionary centrist, as I am a pro-labor universal revolutionary centrist independent philosopher, that where we are now geopolitically, my theories are best to create a public-private partnership and these 2 new institutions to be integrated with all existing public and private institutions so that we secure civilization and break the impasse and have it with some joy. I'll admit of this privilege of civilization. That's what we have. So many different privileges. The transportation, subway, train, the train, right? It's a privilege of civilization. The highways, the truckers who conduct all to the big cities to have the food, the coffee, the chocolates, everything that we do online for entertainment, for pleasure, or for purpose. It is a privilege of civilization. It is part of privileges of civilization which we have, myself included. The food, papaya, I can buy transport. Thank you to my anonymous sister who gave me half of this papaya. If I make $1 million, I'm gonna give her half. If I make $1 billion, I'm gonna give her half. If I make $1 trillion, I'm gonna give her half. My anonymous sister. As this papaya was transported, we have import export, right? We have integrated chains. We have this privilege of transportation. Railway workers, thank you railway workers across the collective North American civilization, coast to coast. Now sending them some big dragon hugs. So I would have a radio or radio show or a television show. It would be a lot of gratitude, a lot of sending thank you, encourage people to work out, train, exercise, and blessings. And with consent, I encourage all to give yourselves a hug like you never hugged before. With consent and hygiene, mutual understanding and love, I encourage all to give yourselves a hug like you never hugged before. Like with consent and hygiene, give yourself a hug like you never hugged before is the main message. I'm just gonna go quickly. I'll be back in a minute. Be back in a minute. Be back in a minute. I need to go to the washroom. Our privilege.
Let's go to Jason Bayoff for today's news on CJT 800. Montreal Now with Aaron Rand and Natasha Hall. Brought to you by Dormez-vous. Give the joy of better rest this holiday season with sleep essentials from Dormez-vous. Sleep well, stay well. Dormez-vous. You're listening to the voice of Montreal. News Talk Radio, CJAD 800, an iHeart radio station. CTV Throwback and Movies. It's TV favorites, movies, and more. All free, all the time. CTV Throwback and Movies stream anytime on ctv.ca and the CTV app. Good afternoon. It's 3 o'clock. I'm Jason Bayoff for this QTV News Update. Cloudy with a chance of showers today, +3 downtown. Weather details in minutes. Here's what's making news right now. A black man pulled over 30 times in 3 years in Terrebonne. The ice storm was 25 years ago today, and Kevin McCarthy loses a 4th vote and a 5th vote to become U.S. House Speaker. For the latest from the CJAD 800 Traffic Center, here's Marty Lamar.
About Lafontaine backing up to the Place de Versailles, inbound from the 132 split that opens up after Notre Dame. We're looking at some volume on the inbound 20 now through Ville Saint-Pierre. Outbound, no major problems. Tican looking fine in both directions. Some volume on the net this afternoon between the 215s in both directions. If you're over, ask your doctor, nurse, or pharmacist if vaccination for pneumococcal pneumonia with the new Prevnar 20 is right for you. Learn more at prevnar20.ca. Traffic and transit every 15 minutes on CJAD 800. Your next report's coming up at 3:15.
In the news, the Quebec Human Rights Commission is taking the city of Terrebonne to court after a black man who lives there says he was pulled over 30 times in 3 years. The commission is taking Pierre-Marcel Monsanto's case to Quebec Superior Court instead of going the usual route, going to the Human Rights Tribunal. CTV's Stephen says that will allow a decision in Monsanto's favor to carry more weight.
Interestingly, he said that the frequency of the random checks started to drop when he changed his car from a GMC Envoy, a rather luxurious vehicle, and scaled it down to a rusty Nissan Sentra. But he said that he still gets pulled over, and car, as far as they're concerned, this is the worst case of racial profiling.
And we are back. Yes, did wash my hands. Did wash my hands. As a matter of fact, we'll double check and do a little bit of hand sanitizer. Hand sanitizer. We continue part of this song going. We're gonna go rock and roll for another 15 minutes or so. It is 3:03 p.m. in the EST. Please, a call of the heart to all those involved in the buying, selling, trading of stocks at this moment in time. Wall Street, Wall Street, Wall Street. Mr. Fink of BlackRock. Please, if you make $1 million on the stock market today, buy, sell, trade stocks, futures, options, puts, give 10% of that million, because 10% of 1 million is the equivalent of 100,000. 100,000 you can divide it by 4, that is 25,000. Give 25,000 for food security because everybody gotta eat. 25,000 for LGBTQ youth services, and 25,000 for environmental factors, and 25,000 for planting a tree for every tree that we cut down. 4 different causes. 10% of 1 million is the equivalent of 100,000. Please, 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 if you make a million today or tomorrow or Friday, you got a day trade, 193 minutes left on the buying and selling because it closes at 4:30 on the stock market. Please, 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 CEOs also give for food security, for food security, for food security. Back to the topic at hand, discussion, my thesis. The privilege of civilization. The privilege of civilization, which we have, all of us, all Canadians, citizens, residents, all living, of course, in my United States brothers and sisters and the complex North American civilization and beyond. We all share in common this privilege of civilization. All of us, without any exceptions, we share the privilege of civilization. And within the privilege of civilization, which we all share and have in common, there are interconnected, intersected privileges, a multiplicity of privileges, such as that mostly for most of us, the top one is the food security, because most of us, do not farm. Most of us are not farmers. We do not have plots of land to feed ourselves or to feed others as well, to provide others with bread, with butter, with cheese, with bacon, with salami, with all the legumes, all the fruits, all the vegetables that we have. And of course, and the grains. And as the motto of the Dancing Goddess Army, which I'm calling for the public-private partnership, the PPP, to for all to support, all willingly loving, of course, to be for pleasure and purpose, for environmental harmony and harmony with nature, between nature and civilization, and to support the public and the private partnership of the Dancing Goddess Army, the DGA, which I'm calling, of course, for all to support, officially the International Integrated Dancing, integrate all, be in all gender, all ages, all sexual orientations, inclusive dancing, the DGA, to, of course, have the Dancing Goddess Army, and, of course, be a public and a private partnership for pleasure and purpose, pleasurable to dance, my favorite sport, as I love other sports, but my favorite is dancing. More dancing gonna come in the coming days, weeks, and months ahead as we head ahead into this 2023, and of course to create this complementary institution to the Dragon Army, officially International Citizen Integrated Social Security and Service Force, to be for security and service, and the Dancing Goddess Army for pleasure and purpose, environmental education and action, to encourage citizens, even myself, to do better recycling, better compost, increasing compost and recycling, and of course, via my theory and these two complementary public and private partnership institutions and organizations, the DGA, Dancing Goddess Army, the International Integrated Dance League with the Dragon Army, of course, to see and encourage citizens to go see and integrate. Since 1984, we have alienation, and my theory called citizen integration theory will address some levels of that, to have this action to encourage people to go see, for example, the dams of Hydro-Quebec here in Quebec, to see the farming. I wanted to go see. I said, wow, I got cheese the other day. Neighbors gifted yours truly some good cheese from about 418 kilometers away. It was a dairy farms, right? I have a lot of different cheeses. We have some of the best cheeses here. Thank you, cheeses providers, and all involved in the production and distribution of food, because everybody gotta eat, even Wall Street. Everybody gotta eat, even Wall Street. And I have, of course, said I wanted to go there, see how they produce their cheese. How many cheeses, how the wine grows, how the potatoes in the farm 44 kilometers away. So to have citizens part with the Dragon Army to go see, encourage the farmers, see how farming is done. It doesn't have to be a deep analysis, but to have some joy, to see how to integrate, to see how all things of this civilization of North America, collective North American civilization, Canada coast to coast, we have the citizen integration theory, so that we fight also alienation, to see, for example, how the railroads function. The railroads now going with so much tons of grain across coast to coast Canada, to see, of course, telecommunication, theater, all levels of private and public institutions and organizations, how they work to encourage citizens to go do a little bit of knowledge and information and a little bit of education about farming, about everything that we have, with different weekly events to have with the Dragon Army, Dancing Goddess Army, to see how the dams operate, how the cheese road, how the farming, how the highways, how security, all citizen integration theory, the CIT. But first, it has to be the debt refusion theory, the DRT, which I firmly believe can propel the complex North American civilization, the collective North American civilization for the 21st century, to be an ethical, moral, ethical, and just superpower for world peace, and for world peace beyond North America for Bank of International Settlements, IMF, World Bank, of course, and other institutions of global institutions, NATO, of course, NORAD first, North America first, and NATO to create the UE, like they did in Europe. So the euro adopted, and I think the newest country now to adopt the euro currency is Croatia, from what I read on the news. So the privilege of civilization has privileges, which more of us have in different ways, right? There's of course another privilege which comes when somebody inherits a lot of economic, financial, commercial wealth, right? If you inherit $156 million or $7 million or $93 million or $11 billion, then you have more economic, financial privilege when you start off. Different privileges, right? Which we have. Privileges, plural, multiple. I've just demonstrated how I have multiple privileges. Although as a citizen who is economically, financially, commercially struggling, broke but rich in kisses and rich in art and creativity and some physicality, some brain and some muscle, created the best workout training program which requires no equipment. Although I have that, I do have some privileges of civilization. The electricity, I did not build any of those dams. Revelation, truth. My brothers and sisters de la belle province Canada dansaient bien comme faut, lâchez-moi les cheveux longs. Pas bâti, moi, là, aucune centrale de l'Hydro-Québec. Hein. J'ai ce privilège, la centrale de l'électricité que ça soit renouvelable. I have these privileges, those a little bit of French. I love French. I'm a Quebecer. I'm a Quebecer in this life and in the past life as well was a Quebecer. I'm a Quebecer, Canadian, North American. I am a world peace advocate, but I'm right from here, from Hawk Island, Metropolis Island, and surrounded by the river we call St. Lawrence. And I call Snake River because it looks like a snake from above. As Montreal, for me, if you look from above, it looks like a bird with wings spread. And of course, my encounter with the hawks, because we have hawks, HAWKs, hawk birds here in Montreal. In Montreal, we have hawks. So nonetheless, I demonstrated a food privilege, right? The electricity privilege and the housing privilege. Say my rent is paid for the 4th of January, 4th today, 4th day, first week. So the electricity, one of my privileges, the food, even the honey, right? We considered part of food, nutrition, food, and this papaya and this bread. That's one privilege, the food, because I don't own a farm, although I send hugs and kisses, blessing to all the farmers of Quebec, La Belle Province, and Canada, coast to coast, and North America for the bread, right? For the bread and the bakers and the wheat. Of course, the papaya gifted from my sister, which I'm gonna eat soon, and the honey and the coffee, but also the electricity, right? Which is connected and comes from one of those dams or a combination of those 63 dams across this La Belle Province. So we have that privilege. It's a privilege. We have a privilege of civilization. We have the privilege of civilization, and within it we have a multiplicity of called privileges of civilization, such as myself, there's 3 of them. The food now today, which I'm gonna eat, the electricity, which I'm utilizing now, which is clean, zero pollution, zero emission, and it's renewable, and this underground room, office, and temple, which is in Hawk Island, Montreal. Let's say my home now, my house for many years. It's a small space, but nonetheless, it's a room, it's an office, it's a temple, and a 4th dimension to being a room, an office, and a temple. It's also have served me as a gymnasium for this space, but I did not build it. I clean the floors, I do this, I do that, but I did not build it myself. I know a little bit how it was built with cement, with XYZ, some little bit, but I did not. So I have these 3 privileges. The transportation. Thank you, construction workers who maintain now. Go construction workers, fill those potholes. Go construction workers across La Belle Province, Montreal, fill those potholes. Gonna offer them free hugs as well. Construction workers, public construction workers, public works workers, as we call the public works, the public maintaining the public roads, because that's a public domain and that's a public good, right? We have public goods. If we are to have more private and public partnership, which I'm calling for, we have to have the balance and the maintenance, right? Because I encourage all the workout to train and exercise. If you're a public worker filling the potholes in Quebec, La Belle Province, you see me usually marching in red. You can get yourself a free hug. A free hug I got for my. Since I might ask if you're vaccinated, right? Because I'm triple vaccinated, and hygiene. I might inquire about hygiene, because I try to be as hygienic as I can, especially when I go in public, because I have this dimension. Yes, I admit I get dirty. Maybe I get more dirty than the dirtiest, perhaps. But I get back clean, royal, regal, lofty, right? Because there's a place for this, a place for that, a place for X, Y, Z, right? So we have the privileges of civilization. I own a farm. How many farms? If not, we have that farm privilege that we have, because if we don't farm, we cannot feed millions of people, right? We have small farming, medium farming, and big farming, right? Well, small farming can feed perhaps 156 people on a small plot, small land. The medium farms can maybe a few thousand, and the big farms can feed the millions, more than 40 million Canadians and more than 358 million North Americans, Canada, US, and more than 555 million, more than half a billion, more than 500 million Canada, US, Mexico, because Mexico is more than 100 million people. So the farming across the complex North American civilization, the big farms, the medium farms, and the small farms, placed in 3 categories: small, medium, large. They have maybe the extreme, the very small, like I did, smaller, super small, and the super big. Right? Maybe you have 5 categories: super small, small, medium, big, super large. Right? Farm, the mega corporate farming, then the top 10, or top 50, or top 100 corporations, and big General Mills, what have you, right? For food security, produce at a macro level across borders. The food, the big food production, right, that is taking place, of corn, of wheat, of cattle, of pigs, that is produced now to feed all these hundreds of millions of people. So we have, most of us have that, and this has evolved over decades and decades and decades. Of course, in the 60s and 70s, I'm not gonna go into the GMO discussion because that's another complex. Of course, requires more dimension. But I'm saying as a general. So we have the food privilege. Most of us have, since we are not self-sufficient in our growth. We have land and have growth or knowledge, necessary knowledge. So we have that privilege. Food. As holy, sacred, and divine food, and we have the electricity. Unless you're one of those workers in Hydro-Quebec who can say, hey, I was there, I put the cement on La Romaine 2, La Romaine 3, La Romaine 4. Same way, it's me that I put there cement. Thank you, bravo, big dragon hugs. La Romaine, they're the new ones. 1, 2, and 3, and the 4th one is about to open, so we're about to have 64. Central, or those in the Bay James, or not only the dams, but all the potole, all those poles connecting with all those wires and cement and steel across La Belle Province now to power all the things that we have, sophisticated, and the internet and connected, and everything that we have, the TV and everything that connect, that give us electricity to function on a daily basis, whether for cooking, for doing laundry, for seeing, for reading, for heating my coffee now, clean, zero pollution energy, right? But I don't have any other thing lit. Only what's necessary. My room, office, and temple, and my gymnasium here, and the coffee maker. That's it. I always check to see, so I don't forget the bathroom. The bathroom when I'm out of the bathroom, or the kitchen, or the hallway. So I have a small underground space. Right, so we have that privilege, which is the electricity. Also, when we step outside, take the metro or the subway. You go with the subway. We have here in Montreal, underground, right? We have that transportation privilege, which is part of the privilege of civilization. So food, housing, transport, which I'm calling for the security via the public-private partnership of the Dragon Army to be integrated with all existing institutions and organizations. The Dragon Army, public-private partnership. And that is my call to all, right? So we have the transportation systems. We have the highways. We have the highways. Right? We have the highways. The highways, the cars, the roads. Thank you, construction workers now in the roads, public construction workers across the complex North American civilization, across the collective North American civilizations, or filling in potholes. Now, thank you. Big Dragon hugs, go. Public workers, go. Fill those potholes, go. As the people's athlete, cheering for those filling the potholes in Montreal, Quebec, Canada, coast to coast. And of course, throughout the complex North American civilization, since we have many integrated. And of course, the big transportation across the railways. How many trains are going now? Maybe 31, maybe 77, maybe 93, maybe 156, maybe 333 are going across Canada, US, Mexico. Trains with goods and trains with passengers. Railroads. We have that, another part of the privilege of transportation, which was built along with the highways over decades. It didn't take a day, it didn't take 7 years, it took 77 years, right? It took more than 7 decades to build the railroads, some of the railways, the steel, the cement, of course, the aluminum, the iron, right? And to build the highways with the cement. Of course, the prevents to go coast to coast, the Canada, Trans-Canada National, we can go coast to coast, right? And go south all the way to Mexico and beyond. Canada, US, Mexico, most highways and railroads have ways of where they connect, we can go, right? We can go with the train. We have to switch at one point between cities, states, and of course the US. We have to switch, and then we have to change highways. But in theory, I can go with my car now. I can start driving from Montreal all the way to Mexico City. Right? So I can cross Canada, US, Mexico because of those roads, highways. Right? Were built over decades by 3 generations of North Americans. So we have that's a privilege. That's a privilege, part of the privilege of civilization, which housing, transport, electricity, food first is at the top, which even CEOs, even our athletes, whether football players, whether actors, whether multi-millionaire rappers or actors also have. On a daily, most, like, if we are not fasting or no, everybody gotta eat. Right? Our president, my prime minister, Justin Trudeau, teddy bear Legault. What you have for lunch? What I'm going to have for lunch, I'm going to have this papaya, these 2 pieces of bread, and this. And then I'm going to work out, and then I'm going to have dinner. I'm going to have a late lunch, like a little lunch snack, like I did yesterday, and later on I'm going to have a bigger meal after my workout, because I want to work out today. I want to work out today a little bit more than I worked yesterday. Yesterday was less than average. Usually I work way overtime, go more than a whole game of hockey, which is 3 periods, is 20 minutes, 20 times 3, that's an hour. Or football, gridiron, that's 15 minutes each quarter, 4 quarters times 15, do the math, that's 60 minutes as well, an hour. And of course, basketball is the same, it's quarters times 15 minutes, that's an hour play, so each has an hour. Or football, hockey, or basketball, or baseball is different because it's innings, it can be longer, right? When it's a different game. Soccer has 90 minutes, 2 halves of 45 minutes, so soccer is a bit longer. Usually my, about averaging, of course, when I go overtime is my workouts, sometimes minimum an hour and maximum 3 hours, right? On my hardcore dragon workouts. So I have that privilege later on also to work out in my room office and temple, because I have the electricity, I have the connection to post it, continuing my work as an independent fitness captain and independent athlete to, of course, post open source my workouts and continue to encourage people to work out, train, exercise, and of course call people to do business with yours truly, Rainbow Dragon, in any way, shape, capacity, or form. Or if you want to challenge me, because I fight my own battles and can put boxing gloves and we can go tango, or freestyle battle rap, or philosophize or dance is not a problem. Or we can rap, but best make sure that I'm gonna rap for the farmers, for the butchers, for the bakers, for the truckers, for the bakers, for the bakers, for the world peace. ICBM rockets, please. So world peace, for world peace, we got a word for world peace. I rap for world peace as well. So first and foremost, I rap for world peace, and I encourage all to channel and sublimate. 2 key words of my philosophies: channel and sublimate. My psychological philosophy, spiritual philosophy, artistic, even sexual matters, sexual lusts, impulses. Channel and sublimate, if you cannot necessarily fulfill, to channel into creative, constructive actions, to work out, to train, and to exercise, which is my medicine and therapy of choice. I believe it is for many, have been for years, and am and will continue to call for the mass financing thereof people to work out people to work out, to train, and to exercise, which has been, is, and will continue to be my medicine and therapy of choice, and I believe it is for many. So workout, train, exercise, I encourage you in 2023, and come work out with the dragon. That's another privilege which we have. I'll be able to work out since my food is secured, my rent is paid for the month of January, so I can continue to do my work, my artistic work, philosophic work, to do my projects, and to even send emails or respond to emails, which I'm going to send. I'm going to meet my deadline by Friday, hopefully, because I missed the deadline last Friday to continue today to send to these 300 PMS, petite à moyenne entreprise, which we call in Quebec la belle province. So I'm contacting for my artistic, philosophic, dance, and a little bit of comedy and humor. So I am 1/7 comedian, 1/7 humorist, 1/7 satirist, 1/7 being a philosopher, geopolitical analyst, and theorist, and athlete, activist, and universal spiritual teaching student. I'm a 7th artist, a 7th comedian as well. I like to bring humor and joy. But of course, there are some serious matters. There are some serious matters and serious matters. And this has been part 2 of the privilege of civilization. So to recap, the privilege of civilization we all have, all of us, all citizens, the 40 million of citizens of Canada, United States, 358 million of citizens of the United States, of course Mexico, throughout the complex North American civilization, which is my theory again, that we constitute the North Americans, Canada, US, Mexico, and the islands, Cuba, Haiti, Dominican Republic, and the island. We constitute a collective North American civilization which started emerging around the Second World War in a response to the fact that Western civilization was sort of in a civil war within itself. Also, as sort of a response, the collective North American civilization started arising, the complex North American civilization. And so we have this privilege, and we have the privilege of civilization as a whole, all of us, and within that there's sub variants, subgroups, interconnected, inter of course integrated privileges. Some of us have more of that privilege than others, but most of us have the food, unless you're a farmer growing the potatoes, doing the bacon, the cattle, the eggs. Thank you, egg farmers, for the eggs. I think I still have 3 eggs. I'm gonna have to check. Maybe I'm gonna boil myself some eggs. If I still have, do I still have 3 eggs? Maybe I still have 3 eggs, because I bought a carton for myself and my sister the other day. So thank you, the egg farmers. Egg prices have increased, but I think I still have 3 eggs. So I can do protein after workout, train, exercise, get more protein after working out, building some more muscle. So we have the farm privilege, we have the transport part of the privilege, unless of course you've built, or the electricity privilege, unless of course those who contributed to the building thereof have less of this privilege, which we all take advantage or utilize or function on a daily basis, which we're sometimes not necessarily mindful of, aware that we have on a daily functioning of our societies when we interact in whatever shape or form, in the private or the public sphere, when we step outside. Right now I'm in my private underground room, Office Temple, as a philosopher, geopolitical analyst, and theorist. But I step outside, right when I step outside, I'm no longer just private citizen, I'm also public citizen with an added dimension of responsibility, duties, and obligations. And that added responsibility, duty, and obligation at this moment in time is hygiene, public hygiene. Please, increasing hygiene in public, washing your hands, disinfect with soap and water. And of course, if you have to stay 2 meters away, XYZ, whatever the case may be. And of course, with consent, and also encourage all to also get vaccinated, and increasing public hygiene with consent. Of course, give yourselves a hug with consent like you never hugged before is the message. 20 minutes, like a period of hockey with consent. I encourage you all to those activities. And of course, taking a bath, another privilege which I have, although I cannot afford a massage therapy session, wish I could, but I can take a bath because I have my electricity bill is paid, so I can put water this weekend, and after working out a few times this and marching tomorrow, Friday, for World Peace, to the mountain and back, I can also of course put some water, take a bath, like an hour bath or an hour and a half bath for recreation, for hygiene, and on purpose and pleasure. So that could be another privilege, but it's part of the privilege of electricity. So it's part of all the technologies that we have, that we use for entertainment, right? So we have different privileges. Some people have different privileges than others. I love sports. I encourage people in physical activity and sports, created a great workout training program. But take, for example, in the sports, out of the NFL, National Football League, NBA, National Basketball Association, NHL, National Hockey League, and MLB, the most privileged economically, financially, commercially speaking. So from a finances point of view, the most privileged financially, and of course in disproportion to the majority of citizens of North America, is the NBA, the National Basketball Association. The NBA averages a salary of 7.7 million annual. So the average player salary for the NBA is 7.7 million a year. The average salary for an NBA player, and I love basketball, I'm too short to play, but I can dance. Will you let your story do a business, do the dance? And please give, you don't need another house, you got seven houses, 7 cars. Give to food security in this January, February, March, please, please, please. So they have this privilege called the financial privilege, way more than us, than the rest of us at this moment. Although I'm blessed in kisses and some bend and some muscle, I invite all the NBA players to try to do my workout since they're paid millions of dollars. I'm assuming that the athletes should be able to do my workout without any problems, which is simple, effective, and efficient. And the rules are this: 93 minutes to do 100 push-ups, 100 squats, 100 hawks. That holy, sacred, and divine trinity. 93 minutes to do 100 push-ups, 100 squats, 100 hawks. Trinity. Push-ups, hawks, squats, 100 for each. 93 minutes. Once you start the countdown of 93 minutes, there's no pause, no stop. You got to keep it in motion, keep it in marching by walking, jogging, running fast pace, or running or marching preferred. You got to do 100 push-ups, 100 squats, 100 hawks, 100 for each. 13 maximum repetitions per set is allowed, 3 minimum, anywhere in between. 7, 6, 9, 10, whatever the number is between 13 and 3. So you got to do 30, you can do 13 maximum every time. I recommend alternating, and I do a little bit of 10, 7, whatever the number is, but 13 max 3. So those 4 main rules. 93 for how many minutes are allocated in total. 93 minutes total allocation. You got to do 100 push-ups, 100 squats, 100 hawks. The Holy Sacred and Divine Trinity. 13 maximum reps per set, 3 minimum. Anywhere in between 7, 6, 5, 9, 10, whatever the number is. And of course 31 seconds, the amount of marching, jogging, or running or walking fast pace which is required of one to do between sets. So you got to march between those sets, 31 seconds in between each set. So those are the rules, 4 main rules, 4 main numbers. 93 for the amounts of minutes which are allocated. 93 minutes. 100 push-ups, 100 squats, 100 hawks, Holy Sacred and Divine Trinity. 13 and 3, 13 maximum and 3 minimum, anywhere in between 7, 6, 5, 9, whatever the number is, and 31. So 4 main numbers. 93 for how many minutes total are allocated. 13 and 3, they go together hand in hand, those numbers, and 31. And within these rules, you can do a multiplicity combination of factors. You can do it differently every time. So those are the rules. 93 minutes, 13 and 3, or 31 seconds. Within those rules, there's a multiplicity of combinations which you can do at any given moment, or you can do it differently every time. So I'm challenging the National Basketball Association, NBA, NHL, National Hockey League, and of course the MLB, Major League Baseball, and of course the sports leagues, NHL, National Hockey League, NBA, NFL, National Football Sports League, to try to do it, athletes, my workout within those rules. 93 minutes to do 100 push-ups, 100 squats, 100 hawks, 13 repetitions maximum per set, 3 minimum, anywhere in between, and 31 seconds. So there's no stop, no pause once you start the 93-minute countdown. In other words, in between sets, you got to do a minimum of 31 seconds of marching or jogging or running or walking fast pace. So the NBA players averaging 7.7 million, so some make less than the average player makes, which is 7.7 million. Some make 8, 9, 10, 15, 20, 25 million, 30 million a year. A lot more rare, the 30 millions, but some make 6, 5, 4, whatever. But average is 7.7. So within the 4 sports leagues, the NBA makes more than in average terms, makes more than the NFL and the NHL and the MLB. 7.7 million. So the NBA has more privileges, and of course all the other privileges in terms of the finance due to the interconnected privilege of civilization. We are going through is 3:33, so we're gonna wrap it up. Till next time. Put it on Facebook Live, never delete. Next one is 3:33, and I'm gonna go 156.